Welcome to Fire and Life Talk, transforming a world one heart at a time.
Welcome to Fire and Life Talk. I am your host, Pastor Gary. I got our co-host on the screen as well. We're doing something a little different today because I didn't hit the right buttons, but we got our guest, Kemir Baker, is with us as well. So today is going to be an awesome day. Kemir is the owner, the CEO and founder of J Intelligence Networks. And this is her second time on the show. And we just thank her for taking out her time and coming on, rearranging her schedule. We really appreciate it.
Yes.
But today we're going to be talking about emotional and mental health journeys. A lot of times we get stuck, whether it's with our jobs, our family, just life period. We get stuck in this mundane type of world where we're not living a full and prosperous and victorious life. So Kemir is here today to help us to understand it, give us some points and show us a way out and how to embrace it and actually to live our purpose that we were created to live. So again, we did things a little different today and we just thank God. So Kemir, welcome to Fire and Life Talk.
Thank you for having me. It is always fun coming and talking with you guys.
Yes.
We talk so much. We were like, oh, the hour went by already.
Yeah. So maybe the way we did it today, I may have more time. I like that. I like it.
Yes.
I like it.
Yes.
So
I'm excited about the show, How to Find Peace and Purpose in Pain. This is going to be a great subject.
Yeah, I wish I kind of knew I know some of the tools that you use and everything, and I wish I had them back in the day. So, yeah. So for those that are listening, if you're having a hard time in life, or again, we just get caught in our cycles and circles and ruts, and sometimes we just cannot figure how to get a way out. And there's so many different levels of that. But first, I tell you what, Kemir, tell us about J Intel and how you got started.
Yes, we've been around for 6 years now, and we provide faith-based educational programs for emotional health and healing. And it came about from my own experiences growing up from emotional trauma and learning how to manage myself after the trauma. And so many times I didn't manage myself. And it also affected my walk with God because there was a lot of shame and guilt associated with it, and just not understanding how He was walking alongside with me and providing the tools. And so once I got through that part of my journey, I realized that the information is scattered. It's there, but you have to do a lot of research to get what you need. Right. And so I was like, hey, I don't have a roadmap. There's some things that I done figured out. Why not share it and give other people the opportunity to get the information sooner instead of it taking so many years? And so I guess you can thank my suffering for bringing us to this place to be able to encourage other people on their journeys.
I think the best way is experience, even though these trials and things we go through, challenges in life, it can be hard. It can be hard, but I thank God that He uses you and uses a lot of people if we will allow Him No
Yeah.
matter, how small or insignificant you think our lives are, we can always help someone,
Yes.
help someone to get through. But the key to that is getting through. We have to
Yes.
get through ourselves, and we can always reach back. And that's what it's all about. The enemy comes to kill, steal, and destroy, comes to divide. But if we can just get past that and see others as God's creation, see others as beautiful, see others and with empathy and compassion, and
Yes.
saying, "Hey, I can help you. I've been
Yeah.
where you're at. I can help you, or I know someone that can help you, or they may know someone." So that's why we thank God that you came on the show today, again. And I tell you what, can you explain the mindset or the journey of a person that's caught up in emotional and mental health circles and cycles and may find themselves stuck?
Yeah, it's actually quite fascinating because when I was thinking through this topic a little bit more, one of the things that hit me is normally we're not aware that we're in that cycle. We're not aware that we are repeating the same pains over and over again, making choices that's placing us in circumstances to repeat trauma.
Mhm.
And one of the things that happen is that when we are always bombarded with negative experiences, they become our normal. And so
Oh,
in that normal lens, you stay in it because you know how to navigate it. And so what happens is that develop this helplessness persona, and then because of that helplessness, you continue to repeat traumas over and over again. And I know I met people, and even I would say it to myself, it's like, why am I in this type of relationship again? Like, didn't I learn my lesson the last time? And
Right.
so when it comes to emotional mental health, it requires that we change and adjust and be more aware of our choices and how those choices came about. Because so many times we're not looking at the external influences as well. We're just looking at this is the outcome and let me figure out how to navigate this outcome instead of taking a step back and say, why am I in this situation? Taking a step back, who influenced me to be in this situation? And then having that level of awareness, making decisions. Okay, I do have the power to do something different. What does that look like?
Okay.
right. And I believe that that's how some people get stuck, is because they can't see a way out.
Yeah.
Two experiences that I've just had here recently this year. We with this program that I work with, we go in, and we went into this apartment complex. It was decent on the outside. It was in a fair, nice neighborhood, so to speak. But once I got in there, it looked like a third world country,
Oh, wow.
and it was chaotic to me. And I'm standing there in the middle of it, and I'm looking around, and no one's, they was dull or numb to it.
Mhm.
And it came to me like, this is their normal.
Yeah.
This
Yeah.
is how they live every day. And I'm not condemning them, but it was something like, hey, there's a better life. There's a better
Mhm.
way of making it living and living. I'm looking at the children. The children were still being children, but like you're saying, there's that environment is gonna affect
Mhm.
them, whether they realize it or not at a certain age. The
And
Yeah.
second thing was, I realized I learned that when we go to the chiropractor and we haven't been in a long time and we get adjusted,
Mhm.
our body starts to go back to
Mhm.
that abnormal, because our brain has been trained that the abnormal is normal.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah, yeah. So what are some of the symptoms, or what can we look for um, in that state of mind?
Well, again, the first step I think is getting to a place of I want something better. So it's a matter of trying or looking for motivational items, meaning, as you noted before, it becomes your normal.
Yeah.
So in order to see that it's not normal, that means stepping out of your current environment, pursuing different relationships where they have something that you want to achieve, and to be able to ask questions. How did you get to this place? So that you are pursuing your anti-normal. But in
Right.
order to do that, again, I go back to the whole awareness piece and making deliberate decisions to pursue something that looks better than what you have. Another thing is our circumstances, they're usually developed over time. Like our anti-normal becomes because of different influences, different experiences, and then it becomes normal. So what you need to do is take a step back and think about, when was this not my normal? And
Mm.
when you think about when this is not my normal, connect with, how did I feel? Connect with, what did I see? How excited was I about life? Connect with the emotional aspects of that joy that you had before that was your normal. And when
Yeah.
you do that, you're creating a place, an anchor, so that you can come back and say, I have something that I can work with, so I can work towards getting back to that place. And so many times we don't do that because we're so focused on that survival. Like, I got to get through this circumstance. And so we get even more trapped because it's like, I don't have time to do all that. But
Right.
again, it goes back to remembering there was a period in your life where you were thriving, where you were happy, where you had a sense of peace, and you knew what you wanted to go after and achieve. And so it becomes going to your brain and saying, brain, I want you to hold on to that experience so we can create new experiences.
That's good. That is so
Yeah.
good.
That's awesome. I'm also thinking, while you were talking this, about when someone experiences trauma,
Mhm.
you know, the examples that you were given, that there was a then and now,
Mhm.
and how to look, for a way out.
Mhm.
But some people have grown up. I guess from my point of view, what symptoms or signs for I should look for, we should look for in another person that has experienced these things.
Yeah, one of the things that recently God allowed me to experience, and I will say it so many times on my podcast, which was, I felt like I was a hamster on the wheel,
Hmm.
consistently running. And that is very similar to our emotional well being, our mental well being, meaning that we have things that we want to achieve and we will attempt to achieve them, but we're just running and everything else is still staying the same.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so a good indication is, what is going on in my life that no matter what I do, I'm still in the same place. That being with my relationships, with my job, that people are still approaching me the same way. And that is like a hint that there's some deep seated issues where you're stuck in that negative experience and you're unaware that you're repeating those negative experiences. And I know the last time we spoke, one of the things that I talked about as well is that no matter what you do, you come home and you're still unhappy and miserable. That there's still something that's in your spirit saying you're not there. And those are all indications to say, I need more help.
Yeah.
And I can't do it by myself. I'm trying, which is very clear because I'm trying to make all these decisions. I'm trying, but
Yeah.
I'm not moving beyond. And that just means that you require just more support and getting new ways of thinking, new behaviors, because the behaviors that's been conditioned are not healthy behaviors.
Yes. Definitely.
Yes.
Yeah. So again, the identification is, no matter what I do, I'm still in this state and I'm still tired and I'm still not achieving my ultimate goals and I'm not happy. That's when you know that you require additional help. And I wish that just knowing that I require additional help is enough.
Right.
Right.
Like, I wish that if I know that I need some money, yes, I wish. Wouldn't it be easy? Like, I need $5,000, and all I do is think about it, and I manifested $5,000. But there's still a piece where I
Yeah.
have to take steps towards getting that $5,000, and that's the same with our emotional mental health. Like, these things don't go away because
Right.
you want it to go away. You have to say, okay, I need to do something different. What does that different look like?
Look like, yeah. Yeah.
You know, Kemir, I understand that, but this is an opportunity for a person that um, realize the situation, and they can make those steps. But I'm thinking about that person that may have grew up in a situation where that was the norm in their family, and they haven't seen anything different because they think that that situation is okay.
Yeah.
Um, I had an experience with a child, and I was in a classroom, and I was talking to that child about a family. And, you know, I was saying his mother, father, you know, just giving a description of a family. But in one sense, that child asked me, he said, "Does your husband beat you?" And so that mindset is that's the way a family is supposed to be, and that is
Yeah.
okay because they were in that environment. So
Yeah.
how do you help that person that just don't know any different? And that
Yeah.
cycle is because they're in that same situation all the time and they
Yeah.
don't see anything different.
Yeah. And again, that's a really hard circumstance. And as you noted, it's a common circumstance. And unfortunately, the only way to break up what has become that normal, that truth, is again to put yourself in a new environment, have different conversations. Like with the child, being able to talk to someone, being able to ask those questions, and seeing that there's a different way. And even now that media is so prevalent, being
Yeah.
able to find media sources where there's different behavior and being able to say, wow, I see that that's different. Why is my situation this way? And to begin to start asking those questions and to have that level of self-awareness for an adult, because again, some of these things is culturally,
Mhm.
it's, you know, I'm surrounded by this environment. How do I introduce new stimuli to my environment? And one of the things that came to my mind was support groups.
Yeah.
Even if you're not an alcoholic, go to that support group, because what it will do, it will teach you what is abnormal behavior and
Right.
give you an opportunity to learn how to be more self-expressed
Yes.
instead of hiding behind those experiences. Because so many times we keep repeating them because we don't tell anyone about it.
Right.
And so because we don't tell anyone about it, we're
Right.
not opening ourselves up to learn new information, new ways of handling it. And
Yeah.
then again, we start working through that shame and guilt, and then that starts chewing away. But if you're placing yourself in an environment where you're hearing other people speak their truth, and then in that truth, identifying methods or ways to have different behaviors, that is the first step. It's a
Yes.
great beginning step, and it's an affordable step because
Yes.
AA is free, grief recovery is free. So you may not be in that specific cycle, but what it's doing in terms of support and teaching you how to communicate and identify with healthy behaviors is actually worthwhile to do it.
Amen.
Yeah, that's great. Well, I
That
tell
is
you what, if you have just tuned in, we are talking with Kemir Baker of J Intelligence Network, and we're talking about emotional and mental health. And she's just so exciting and so informative to get us to understand that in that first segment. We're getting ready to take a commercial break, and when we come back, we're going to figure out how to get out of this thing. And yeah, I'm looking forward to that. So again, thank you for tuning in to Fire and Life Talk. We're going to hit a commercial break. Don't go nowhere. We'll be right back.
From one man he made every nation of men, that they should inhabit the whole earth, and he determined the times set for them and the exact places where they should live. God did this so that men would seek him and perhaps reach out for him and find him, though he is not far from each one of us. For in him we live and move and have our being. Now go, be strong and courageous. Lead the people on their way, so they may enter and possess the land as I have shown you. Watch over them willingly, not grudgingly, not for what you will get out of it, but because you're eager to serve God. Don't lord it over the people, but lead them by your own good example. Make every effort to do what leads to peace and mutual edification. And do not become weary in doing good, for at the proper time you will reap a harvest if you do not give up. Those who are wise will shine as bright as the sky, and those who lead many to righteousness will shine like the stars forever. Remember, if God has given you leadership ability, take the responsibility seriously.
Welcome back to Fire and Life Talk. I'm your host, Pastor Gary, co-host Pastor Gina, and our very special guest today, Kemir Baker of J Intelligence Network. And we're talking about mental health, emotional disparity, all those things that get us caught up in a rut, whether it's from our job or just life, or, as we talked about in our first segment, our upbringing, our atmosphere, and all these things that attack us every day, whether we see them or not, and can bring them down. And I went through a period in my life when I found out what vacations are for. I'm going for years and not without having one, and it affects our life. And sometimes when we go through these things and we don't have an outlet, we have to realize that there's consequences. Sometimes we suffer mentally, we'll start suffering in our body, and definitely we suffer in relationships. It causes us torn relationships. So I'm just trying to reach out and maybe hit a point where our viewers can understand and relate, on a personal level. But again, the first segment, we talked about the cycles, we talked about what they look like, and some of the tools to get out of it. But right now, Kemir, tell us how to get out of this rut. Tell us how to get out of these cycles once we realize it. And I know in some of your literature, you put it like being in a desert.
Yes, and wandering and the panting, because just lacking your basic needs at some particular point. And I'm actually just going to reiterate some of the things that I shared earlier in terms of how to get out of that state. First is recognizing that this is an unwanted state.
Yes.
until you say that I want something different, you will stay. No matter how
Yeah.
much we
Yeah.
speak with you, no matter how many times we show you there's a better way, but until you make the decision that you want something different, that's the only time where you will make the progression that you're actually seeking. And so after you make that decision, you're saying, I'm ready, I want to do something different. Begin to look through your circumstances and identify where those influences came from. If
Right.
you've learned that you are a terrible person and that you can never have a relationship, identify those relationships where someone told you that because it wasn't like that in the beginning.
That's
So
right.
identify those external forces that has created your new reality.
That's
Once you identify those sources, go back and identify how were you when those sources were not there, and really dig into those items where what made you happy, reevaluating those things that you learned about yourself that was true in those moments, and take on ownership, relive those experiences in your memory, bring back up those experiences, smell those experiences, hear those experiences, engulf yourself in those experiences. Because when you do that, you're telling your brain that I want you to attach to these experiences instead of these negative ones. And then once you do that, find a different environment where you are pursuing that original truth. As I talked about before, it can be a support group until your finances get into the right place. Finding programs where they're not as expensive that will teach you how to manage your emotions, how to manage your circumstances, how to change your thought patterns. Because at the end of the day, how you think is how you live. If your negative environment has created a sense of helplessness, well, this is the time where you're like, okay, I'm no longer going to be a victim. Let me find those positive environments so that I can be thriving instead of helpless. And of
yes.
course, in all of that, the key component is the willingness to find those safe relationships and to find those who are equipped to address your needs. And
Yeah.
that is a therapist, a counselor. I know so many times we shy away from those words, but they're the ones who spend endless hours determining how to help someone recode their brain, recode their experiences, help with that cognitive thinking, those cognitive behaviors, so that you can be your healthier self.
Wow.
My goodness, you said a lot.
Sure did.
Yeah, you said a lot. I was going to put your contact information up there. We're gonna do that
Yes.
anyway. But
Yes, we
yeah, I'm
should.
gonna give you a call today because you talked about going back
Mhm.
to that period where things changed,
Mhm.
Yes.
or go back. A lot of them is from our childhood, and we've been
Yes.
carrying them for some people for decades.
Yeah.
And so we have to get over the fear of
Mhm.
facing those things
Right.
because, when we talk about Jesus, we talk about the devil. It's the devil that wants us to fear. But the Lord says that I have already overcome the world. I've already
Yes.
overcome these situations and
Yes.
circumstances. But the enemy wants to put a fear in us that, man, I don't want to process that no more.
Yeah.
I'm okay. I'm okay. But what we're saying is, no, you're not okay.
Right.
Mhm.
There's a more victorious, there's a more a better life that we can live mentally. I
Yeah.
went through a period when I just had the same thoughts cycling.
Mhm.
I'm just replaying it over and over and over again. And I couldn't get out of my head. I mean, literally, I could not get out of my head, but I did go seek some help, and they just gave me some simple tools
Yeah.
that man, I was like, this was available this whole time.
Yeah.
So, a lot of times we think things are going to be so hard, especially going back facing things, the challenges we had in our life, the trauma, but the Lord will make a way. And
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, go ahead.
No, well, because as you say that, there was two things that went off in my mind, which is when I'm asking you to revisit the before and to get support when
Okay.
you revisit the current.
Yeah.
Yes.
And,
Okay.
and the reason I say that is I don't want a person to say, well, you told me to think about my negative experience, and then you get stuck in those negative experiences
Right.
and you replaying that trauma over and over again.
Right.
That's
And then
important.
you're
Yeah.
in a more harmful place. I am not an advocate of that. And
Okay.
in fact, one of our programs, Living Free to Be Me, we guide a person through the appropriate steps to make while you're identifying those negative experiences so that you don't start jumping off a cliff.
Right.
Right.
So, again, my recommendation is go to the place before those negative experiences to provide motivation to get the help you need to address those negative situations, and finding safe people. Not everyone is safe, and
That's
and
right.
it doesn't mean that, okay, now I feel comfortable, so I'm just going to tell everybody my childhood trauma. That's not beneficial. That's just going to cause more harm. And then you're going to begin regress back even more to I'm not saying anything. So it
Right.
requires maturity in the context of, well, a friend put it to me this way. Think of it as you being a baby. And she called me all the time, your baby Kemir. What does baby Kemir need to get through this next journey?
Yes.
How should baby Kemir be protected as she is unraveling these traumatic issues? And if I look through the lens of that way, I'm thinking, okay, well, I want to have a parental unit who's going to be kind, who's going to listen, who's going to
Mhm.
guide me to truths versus putting me in the corner to try to keep me quiet because I'm making too much noise.
Right.
And that person that's putting you in the corner because you're making too much noise, that means they're not a safe person. And that
That's
means
right.
they're not equipped to address your needs.
That's right.
So find that parental unit who is equipped to address those needs. So again, the recommendation is get to a place where you know that there's a part within you where you deserve better and you had better, and
Yes.
allow that to take you through that journey of getting support. And if you do decide to evaluate those negative experiences, you may want to start journaling first. When you're talking about tools, Gary, that is a very
Yes.
simple tool to begin to be self-expressed. But when you're journaling, give yourself a limit. Don't journal for hours, because then you'll be in a place where you're mentally exhausted and you're reliving those traumatic experiences. So do it for like 30 minutes and be very deliberate in what you journal about. Like maybe one day you're journaling about why you're angry all the time or why this person makes you angry. In 30 minutes, you stop and you go do something else. So those are healthy ways to
Yeah.
begin this journey without being overwhelmed, without creating suicidal experiences. Like I was trapped, now you got me on the cliff. No cliffs. Be smart about it so that
Right.
you have the healing that you're seeking.
Well, and
Yeah.
that's a good thing. You can, there's a way of escape, and you don't have to focus on that, those tragedies, but you can focus on something where I'm going and I'm getting out of the situation. There's a way of escape.
Yeah.
You mentioned one of the programs that you have, but I just wanted to take the time. I put your contact or the website on the screen so people can go there. But while we're visiting here, can you tell us a couple other programs that you have or what you have in the works?
Yeah. So our main program where we're two programs that we place majority of our energy on. One is with seniors, where we go and teach them emotional health spiritual health, mental health tools. And that's always fun just to be able to go in and spend time with them. But the second program is the one where we walk people through how to heal from emotional wounds caused by relationships or emotional traumas, how to break free from those past hurts. So all
Yeah.
the things that I've shared, we've created a guide, a framework to be able to help a person go through that journey where it's a little bit more financially reasonable, but it gives you those tools so that you can begin to have healthy behaviors, address those wounds in a supportive environment, and
Yeah.
be able to say, okay, I'm getting back to that place where I had that thrive and it got lost in the midst of my experiences.
Yes.
And so we do even a piece in there where we call the recovery phase, where we walk through self-forgiveness, because some of the things that we've done as we coped, as working through those negative, we've done things that's not healthy and hurt other people in the process. And so we go through that journey, as well as highlighting those strengths, those talents that you already have, but been buried because of all of that negativity. So I'm biased of the program, of course, but again, it came about just seeing what helped me when I was working through these things. But let me simplify it, help it to be digestible and achievable. And that program is called Living Free to Be Me.
That's good.
Living free to be me. That
Yes,
is so powerful.
yes.
Yeah, that is so powerful. Freedom,
Mhm.
in any aspect, physically, mentally, spiritually, is so valuable.
Yeah,
Right.
And sometimes we just take it for granted.
yeah.
I think about the time when I was in the military and I was able to visit different lands, and certain things they couldn't even say, or they would get beat or put in jail, or sometimes the death penalty, depending on what they did. So, but also too, we have to say that freedom, you have to have a responsibility. You mentioned earlier about maturity,
Yes.
and even the Bible talks about that.
Yes.
Grace gives us that freedom, but we have to be mature and saying,
Yes.
okay, well, since I get grace, I can do anything I want to do. No,
Yeah.
you need to visit jintelnetworks.org
Yeah.
and and get these things straight. So, I thank you for all that you do, your workshops, your programs and everything. So I just want to continue to encourage you. Go to jintel.org and see what they have. And it's very powerful,
It
very
is.
valuable.
Yes.
Nice.
And I would like to add, with our Living Free to Be Me program, it's an intensive program. So some people are like, oh, I will go do all these other things. No, this is your time to focus on your healing, which
Yes.
requires dedication. And it's an opportunity to, again, receive tools that you didn't have before. And in order to do that, you have to remove those distractions.
That's
And I
right.
would say that the participants who are in the program now, the more that we do it, the more that the enemy comes and tries so hard to distract them from this journey. And the reason being is that he doesn't want you to be in the
That's right.
place where you're thriving, being in a place where you're connecting with God, because those negative influences gives us this a perception of God that's usually not very accurate of his character.
That's
And
right.
Yeah.
so he wants us to stay bound to that place so that we are just struggling and not thriving.
That's good.
And I do want to add too, we are building our coaching network as well. So if
Okay.
you want one-on-one coaching, which
That's good.
again is different than therapy, emotional trauma therapy. Coaching is more of, I'm having negative thoughts, I need to achieve my goals, and what does that look like? So I just want to put a distinction there as well.
Yeah, I appreciate that. That's one thing that we're striving to do. I go ahead and mention it with Light University, is getting the coaching certificates and everything. So I tell you what, we're coming up on our third segment. We're going to go ahead and take a commercial break, but I want to encourage people, if you have any questions or any comments, just go to the comment section, or if you want to leave some comments or got some questions for Kemir, go to jintel.org, and we're going to continue this conversation. And when we come back, we're going to talk about what to do when we're out and how to embrace our purpose in this. So again, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for tuning in. Don't leave. That's what I meant to say. We'll be right back.
That's all.
Perpetuates perversion. It takes everything out of God's divine order.
Don't know what they're voting for. They're like, yeah, we're Republican, or yeah, we're Democrats. You don't know what you're voting for.
It's so violent now throughout all communities, not just one anymore.
Welcome back to Fire and Life Talk. We are having a great discussion, and time is flying by. So we've learned how to identify the situations and things in our life. And that last commercial, I was able to sit and watch the whole thing. That would cause a lot of anxiety within itself.
Right.
When people was putting things in perspective of what was on the forefront of their mind. And Kemir's been giving us some understandings of these different elements. But Kemir, talk to us. When we come out, when the chains have fell off, when we're not bound anymore, and it just still may be a little residual and stuff, but how do we keep our footing? How do we keep enduring and keep that peace and that joy that maybe we have found in the pain, and keep going to grow?
There's two important things. One is to learn what you need to in that season of growth. And I say that because so many times we want to get to thriving, which is wonderful, that we don't put in those things that's going to help us long term. So we kind of skip over putting in healthy habits because we want to help someone else. First, get those healthy habits. Take that journey that God has you on, where He's calling you to mature and grow, and focus on that part of the journey. And instead of, I'm going to be better tomorrow. And I say that because I do that all the time, because I'm like, look, let me learn this fast. I don't need to stay here. But so many times, if I'm learning too fast, then I'm not getting the full piece that God is trying to teach me about how to mature. So then when I go to that part where I'm trying to help someone else, then it's like I have to take two more steps back because they may have done something that triggers me. And I'm like, oh, I didn't really address that piece because I was so excited to get to my thriving. So that's the first one. But then second, once you are out of that place, you've done that time, you've self-reflect, you've healed, you've grown, then God gives us the opportunity to overflow into someone else's life and help them to grow and mature at the same time. And I think there's a statement that God doesn't waste anything. He doesn't waste any experience that you have. And one of the other things that I had to remember too, because I'm always on a time, I'm like, can we do this in 1 month or maybe 2 months or maybe 3 months?
Hurry up.
Right. But to remember that it took you time to get in this state. Right. So it's going to take you time to get out of this state. But on the same notion, the time that I'm investing in my growth, well, a year from now, 2 years from now, I'm going to be in a completely different place. And that is the motivation to keep going, because I know there's something better on the outside. So once you get to that place where I know there's something better on the outside, God, he always makes it clear on how to give back to others. You will start attracting people who need your help.
That's right.
It happens so naturally. But again, before getting to that place, take that time that you need to heal and grow, and know that there's a bigger picture. We just don't see it yet.
Yes, big time. I think I'm talking from experience now. Is I've had some traumatic events and a lifestyle that was not victorious, and it was condemning, and the enemy will come and try to make you feel guilty and all of that. But I had a thought one day, you know what? Stop running from this. Stop trying to get out. Of course, I don't want to be like this. I want to get out. But what would happen if I embraced it?
Yeah.
What if I embraced it? I learned everything about it. And then I learned that through Christ, in Christ, I already have the victory.
Yeah.
So this has happened to me twice in two different instances. And and you got to hear what I'm saying. Once I embraced it, not to live it, but to learn about it, which will make you stronger.
Yeah.
And for me, it was all about the perspective. How I looked at my situation.
Right.
I didn't look at it that it was going to defeat me. And I started knowing, I'm coming out, but while I'm here, I'm going to get strong. While I'm here, I'm going to learn how to get peace in the situation. While I'm here, I'm going to learn how to get joy in the situation. And it's going to do nothing to make me stronger because I'm coming out. So when I come out, I'm coming out stronger. I'm coming out with joy, with peace, with knowledge that I can go back and snatch someone else out the fire and tell them, hey, you can make it. Trust me. We done been through it. Instead of, and again, I'm not condemning anybody. If that's where you're at, I want to encourage you to change your language. Oh, woe is me. Oh, woe is me. No, not oh, woe is you. You're victorious.
That's right.
Listen to what Kemir saying. Listen to our experiences, and others have had different experiences, similar or even worse. Over the time, but you can come out. But while you're there, like you said, I don't know. My mind is running to so many different things. God is in control, even when it looks like He's not. He's in control. And there's a timing for things. Sometimes it's our decision, and sometimes we're saying, hey, no, it's not time. And that's either good or challenging. And I know theology, some theologists is out there, what does he talk about? But I'm just coming from my experiences. And I forgot where I was going with that. But anyway, it's real significant. It's real significant to learn all about it, unless you're in a dire situation. Like Gina had mentioned earlier about some abuse in the home. No, I don't sit around and try to learn all about that. If you're getting beat on your head or emotional, some things we got to come out and get a different environment.
Take a step out.
Yeah, because when you were speaking, Pastor Gary, one of the things that reminded me of was our first interview together where we were talking about church hurt. And it was after our conversation where I realized for myself that I went through similar things from a church hurt perspective. And you made the statement of, I went through it. And so now I know how not to be that for someone else.
That's right.
Yeah. And with our pain, like those experiences, it teaches us how to not be that person for someone else. And then that's when it also becomes powerful, because then you're creating a world of love, goodness, mercy because you know how that made you feel, and you're
Right.
making sure that you're not repeating those experiences now that you have the awareness that it can be completely different.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Stumbled and bumbled around that thing, but thank you for practicing it and putting it together and presenting it.
That is right.
But
So
I think I just want to encourage that you can find peace in the pain.
yes,
You can find joy in the pain. You know,
Yes.
one thing growing up in the Lord is I found that when I got in trouble, when I made bad decisions and all that, he was always there.
Yes.
And it's like when I come out, like, where you at, Lord? I know this is my thinking, y'all. Just stick with me. You know, this was my experience. So I would go do bad things or get myself in trouble just to experience the Lord. I know it's backwards. I know he's there all the time. That's where I was at the time. And somebody else may be experiencing that as well. But
It's like, I just want to see if you really there. I'm gonna do this.
But he's faithful. He
Yes,
is
he is.
faithful,
He's
and he was there every time I needed him, and he's still, he's still there. And in the midst of that, I learned about his love.
Yeah.
Like,
Yes.
even though I made bad decisions, said the wrong things, and intentionally went and did things that was not good for my health or my family and all these things, he was still there.
Yeah.
He protected me, kept me guided, and he does all of us that, all of us that way. But we have to really meditate this and say, you know what, Lord, because I guarantee you, when we're sitting here talking now for people to reflect, I guarantee you, if you sit and meditate, you'll see that the Lord has been with us.
Oh, for
Yes.
sure.
The whole
Yeah.
time.
Been faithful.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that's one of those tools that people talk about all the time as well, is practicing gratitude. Like,
Yes.
gratitude and negativity can't subside in the same space. So even as you're learning how to navigate away from these negative experiences, finding good in things that you do have to keep you motivated to navigate out of those experiences.
Right.
Yes. Yeah.
Right. I know sometimes I would think, oh, I'm in the worst situation, and someone would always come by and give me a worse situation than I'm in. So that does work. You have to be grateful in whatever situation you're in, because
Yeah.
it could be worse.
Yeah. 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 And I want to add to that, not in the sense of I'm settling because it
Right.
could be worse, but that it's more along the lines of, how can I keep going despite that this is challenging,
Right.
so that you're not so overwhelmed with the emotional baggage or the emotional pain that you decide to just drop everything and give up. So that gratitude is to keep you in the place of moving forward and moving out. It
Yes.
shouldn't keep you staying in the same circumstance.
That's right.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I often share about when I was homeless, as a single man in this particular shelter. The families went in first, then the single moms with children. Of course, if they're mom, they're with children, and then the women. So the men were last. Single men were last. So I would get in, and sometime in the kitchen, all that was left was some lettuce, because everyone else had ate. And I remember telling myself, this is just for a season. It's just for a season. But some aspects of it was hard. But what kept me was this father, mother, and their two children would come in. One would play the guitar, the other one play the keyboard, one would sing, and then the dad would preach. And that was my light. You had little encouragements throughout the day or whatever. The Lord didn't leave me, but that was my desert, like we were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
And that was my light, man, my refreshing, my water. And I'll never forget, I said a prayer to the Lord. I said, not if I get out, but when I get out,
Yes.
when you get me straight, strengthen me.
Yes.
Give me that knowledge. I want that zeal to be able to come back in and be that light for someone else as they were. So I think it took about 7 years, and we actually go back to that homeless shelter and just minister, just encourage, just telling someone, hey, you can do it, can change their lives. You never know. And sometimes we got to get in the mirror and tell ourselves that.
Oh, yes, for sure.
Yeah, I call that mirror ministry. Yeah, I'll see somebody walking through the neighborhood and I say, man, good job. Do it. Knowing good and well, I need to be right there beside them walking too.
Yeah. But I enjoy what you shared, because one of the things that highlighted for me is that God is still with us on the journey, and he's still orchestrating things so that that's not our final state.
That's
like
right.
he's inspiring you to take something and be something different and giving you hope. And so I say that because so many times when we are in those circumstances, we don't necessarily see God and we get mad at him saying, well, why aren't you doing X, Y, and Z? But you highlighted he's there. It's just that we're not able to see him because we're so consumed with our emotional and mental state.
Yes.
Opportunity. If you seek him, you will find him.
Yeah.
He told us if we knock on the door, he'll open it.
Yeah.
If we call upon him, he'll answer. And that's his promises. He cannot lie. So when we find ourselves in a situation where there seems to be no way, we can't find a way, or there's no seem to be a way, Jesus is that way maker. He'll make a way where it seems there is no way. Now, he may not do it the way we think, because his process is higher than ours. But if we learn to humble ourselves and seek the Lord, he will give us the answer. And I tell you what, we're coming up on our final couple minutes. Kemir, I would just want to thank you so much for coming to Fire and Life Talk. I know you have been a blessing to us and a blessing to the world, and we thank God for you. We thank God that you walked through your fire, you walked through your desert, and you walked through depending on the Lord. Whether you didn't know his characteristics or whatever. So again, you have a standing open invitation to come back anytime you want. You start a new workshop, give us a call and let us know, and we're going to promote it. Again, if you enjoyed this show, go to our website, fireinlife.org. Look for us on all the social media. And again, we want to promote Kemir Baker with J Intelligence Network. And go to jintel.org and get the information. Sign up for the workshops and the classes. Come on, y'all, let's get free. We got a whole life to live. So we just thank you again for tuning in. And don't forget to like, subscribe, share all those good things. And let's strive to live a victorious life. So until next week, until we see you again, God bless.
God bless.
Thank you for tuning in to Fire and Life Talk, where Jesus is Lord. If you would like more information,